I want you to picture the absolute healthiest thing you could do for your body right now.
Okay.
Maybe you're imagining, I don't know, a long, slow run. Maybe it's a bowl of homemade chicken soup, from scratch.
Right, the ultimate comfort food.
Or maybe it's just drinking a glass of pickle juice to get those electrolytes back after a hard workout.
Those all sound like textbook good decisions. They're what you're supposed to do.
You would think. But I was reading through this stack of research we have for today, and I hit a story that just stopped me cold.
Oh, yeah.
For one of the experts we're looking at, Dr. Tina Moore, drinking that healthy pickle juice, felt like she was having a full-blown heart attack.
Get out of here. A heart attack from pickle juice.
That's what she said.
But it sounds impossible. I mean, pickle juice is just cucumber, salt, and water. Maybe some dill.
That's what I thought, but she describes it so vividly. A racing heart, her skin flushing, just this feeling of total panic. And then there's another story, another expert who ate that homemade chicken soup.
The comfort food.
The ultimate comfort food. And within 10 minutes, he was on the floor with the worst migraine of his life.
It really flips the script, doesn't it?
It totally does.
We're so used to this binary idea of good food versus bad food. Kale is good, donuts are bad. It's simple.
Exactly. And that is just the appetizer for today. We're going to talk about a woman who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, severe life-altering hallucinations, who was effectively cured.
Right.
Because a dentist pulled a bad tooth.
That case study is, I think, one of the most compelling arguments I've ever seen for completely rethinking how we approach mental health.
So welcome to the deep dive. We have a massive stack of materials today, articles, interviews, research papers, all from January 2026.
A fresh batch of research.
A very fresh batch. We're looking at work from Dr. Robert Hedaya, Dr. Mark Hyman, Michael Easter, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and even the minimalists. And the topic on the table is holistic strategies for physical and mental vitality.
And we should probably clarify holistic right out of the gate, because I think when people hear that word, they kind of think of crystals and vague vibes.
Right. We are definitely not talking about vibes today.
No.
No.
No, we are talking about a systems engineering approach. We're looking at the body as a machine, as hardware. The mind is the software running on it. And the world around us, that's the operating environment.
The mission today is to decode the user manual for that whole system. We've broken this down into a few big chunks. First, the hardware.
Right.
We're going to look at why physical bugs, like a hidden tooth infection or a simple vitamin deficiency, often look exactly like mental breakdowns.
Then we'll move on to the software. This is all about upgrading your mindset, how you deal with anxiety, and basically how to stop your brain from overheating.
And finally, the environment. How do you design your life and even your home so that it actually supports the machine instead of constantly stressing it out?
It's a full system diagnostic. Hardware, software, environment.
So let's start with the hardware, because I think this is where most people, myself included, get stuck. When we feel anxious or depressed or just off, we immediately look at our lives. We think, oh, I'm stressed at work, or I need to meditate more.
And that's a natural instinct. It's what we're taught to do. But the sources from Dr. Robert Hedaya and Dr. Mark Hyman suggest that we might be skipping a crucial first step.
What's that?
Their argument is, fix the biology first. You have to check the engine. If the hardware is overheating, you can't meditate your way out of it.
There is a story in the research that illustrates this perfectly. It's about a woman they call Joanne. She's 50 years old. And for a full year, she has been living in absolute hell.
Panic attacks.
Debilitating ones. And for anyone listening who hasn't had a panic attack, we are not talking about just feeling a little nervous.
Oh, no, not even close. A true panic attack feels like you are dying. Your heart creates this thumping rhythm that takes over your whole chest. You can't breathe. You feel like you're suffocating. The room spins. It is pure physiological terror. Your body is screaming danger, and your mind doesn't know why.
So Joanne is dealing with this multiple times a week for a year. And she's doing everything she's supposed to do. She's in therapy. She's seeing a psychiatrist. They have her on Xanax, and not a small amount either. The report said 8 milligrams.
Which is a heavy, heavy dose. That's enough to knock most people out cold for hours. It's a serious tranquilizer.
And it's not working.
Not working.
She's still suffering. So she finally ends up in Dr. Hedaya's office. Now, usually a psychiatrist asks about your childhood, your marriage, your job.
Right, the standard software check.
What did Hedaya do differently?
Well, he did ask about those things, I'm sure, but he didn't stop there. He looked at her blood, and this is where the real detective work comes in. He wasn't looking for the big, obvious flags. He found something very, very subtle.
What was it?
Her red blood cells were slightly large.
Okay, stop there. Large red blood cells. I didn't even know that was a thing they measured. What does that even mean?
They do measure it. It's a marker called MCV that stands for mean corpuscular volume. It's on almost every standard blood panel you get, but it often gets ignored if it's not wildly off the charts.
Then hers was.
The normal range usually tops out around 95 or 98. Joanne's was 101.
That seems negligible. I mean, that's barely over the line. If I saw that on my labs, I wouldn't even think twice.
To most doctors, it is negligible. They'd look at that and say, you're fine. It's a statistical blip. But to a functional medicine expert like Hadaya, that is a huge smoking gun.
So what does a big red blood cell tell you? Why does it matter?
It tells you about DNA synthesis. See, for a red blood cell to mature properly, it has to divide. To divide, it needs to copy its DNA. And to copy DNA, you need certain key nutrients.
Okay.
The big ones are vitamin B12 and folate. If you are low on B12, the cell tries to divide, but it can't quite finish the job, so it just keeps growing. It becomes this big, clumsy, inefficient cell.
So it's a sign of a B12 deficiency.
A very specific sign.
Okay, so she has a vitamin deficiency. I get that. But how on earth does that explain the panic attacks? How do you connect those two dots?
Because B12 isn't just for blood cells. It is absolutely critical for your entire nervous system.
Yeah, in what way?
It helps build and maintain the myelin sheath. You can think of that as the insulation around all your nerves, all the wiring in your body and brain.
Okay, like the plastic coating on an electrical wire.
Exactly. And if that insulation starts to fray because you don't have enough B12, your nervous system starts short-circuiting. It misfires. It becomes hyper-reactive to everything.
So a small stressor that you'd normally brush off.
It suddenly triggers a massive system-wide panic alarm.
So the panic attacks weren't a psychiatric disorder. They weren't in her head. They were a neurological symptom of a B12 deficiency.
Precisely. It was a hardware failure. And here's the tragedy and the miracle of it all. Dr. Hadaya gave her one B12 injection. Just one.
What's that, Pat?
The panic attacks vanished.
Gone.
Gone.
Yeah.
After a year of hell.
That makes me want to scream. I mean, think about it. She spent a year on heavy-duty medication, a year in therapy talking about her feelings, a year probably terrified to leave her house.
Absolutely.
All for something that could be fixed with what? A $10 shot?
It is incredibly frustrating. But it highlights the core message here, which is that biological root causes can perfectly mimic psychiatric disorders. If you don't check the engine, you might spend years trying to fix the driver.
And speaking of biology mimicking madness, we have to talk about the schizophrenic tooth. I read this twice because I honestly thought I misunderstood it.
No, you read it right. This is another case from the same body of research, and it's just as stunning.
So we have a woman who is diagnosed with schizophrenia. And again, let's be really clear here. Schizophrenia is serious. We're talking about profound hallucinations, delusions, a complete detachment from reality. It's usually seen as a lifelong, incurable brain disease.
Right. The standard approach is you manage it with medication, but you don't usually cure it. This woman had severe behavioral symptoms. She had been hospitalized multiple times.
But then during a medical workup, they found something else.
Something in her jaw. A massive silent dental infection.
But wouldn't she have known? Wouldn't she have been in excruciating pain from a tooth infection?
Not necessarily. And this is the really scary part. A chronic infection, like a failed root canal or something called a cavitation in the jawbone.
What's a cavitation?
It's essentially a hole in the bone where a tooth was pulled, but the socket never healed properly. The bone dies, and it becomes a breeding ground for bacteria.
That sounds awful.
It is, but these chronic infections can sometimes be surprisingly painless. The nerve in the tooth might be dead, so you have this hidden pocket of bacteria just festering inches away from your brain.
And it's pumping out toxins and inflammation.
Constantly. And you don't feel a thing in your teeth.
So the infection is just sitting there, leaking poison into her system.
Exactly. And the head is attached to the body. We forget that sometimes. That inflammation, those bacterial toxins, they don't stay in the jaw. They travel. They get into the bloodstream and cross the blood-brain barrier.
And when the brain gets inflamed, it doesn't hurt like a sprained ankle.
No. It misfires. It malfunctions. An inflamed brain can produce hallucinations. It can produce paranoia. It can produce disorganized thinking. It looks exactly like schizophrenia.
So what happened when they found the infection?
They treated it. They pulled the bad tooth, surgically cleaned out the infected jawbone, and put her on a heavy course of antibiotics.
And the schizophrenia.
She stabilized. The sources say she hasn't been back to a psychiatric hospital in decades.
That is absolutely wild. It really makes you wonder how many people are walking around with a diagnosis of mental illness who actually just have a hidden, low-grade infection somewhere in their body.
It's a question Dr. Hedaya raises constantly in his work. He isn't saying every case of schizophrenia is a toothache. Of course not. But he is saying we have to look. We have to rule out the hardware issues before we accept a lifelong software diagnosis.
Now, Dr. Adaya also uses some pretty high-tech stuff to find these issues. He talks about mapping the brain.
Yes, quantitative EEG, or QEEG.
What is that?
Think of it like a wiring diagram for your house. If the lights in your kitchen keep flickering, you don't just keep changing the light bulb over and over.
Right. You check the circuit breaker, you look at the wiring.
Exactly. QEEG does that for the brain. It measures the electrical activity of the brain waves all across the scalp. It can show you which areas are overactive, which are underactive, and which parts aren't communicating with each other properly. It finds the flickering circuits.
And once he finds the bad wiring, he uses lasers. Is that right?
Well, the technical term is photobiomodulation, but yes, essentially it's using specific wavelengths of light, lasers or LEDs.
I have to be honest, when I hear lasers healing the brain, my skepticism meter goes way into the red. It just sounds like science fiction woo-woo.
It does sound like Star Trek, I get it, but the biology is actually pretty grounded. It's all about energy.
Energy?
Your brain cells, your neurons, are incredibly power hungry. They run on mitochondria, which are the little power plants inside every cell. And it turns out that these mitochondria have receptors for certain wavelengths of red and near-infrared light.
So the light acts like a key in a lock.
A perfect analogy. When that light hits the mitochondria, it stimulates them to produce more energy, more ATP, which is the cell's fuel.
So you're basically jump-starting the battery in the brain cells.
That's a great way to put it. If a part of the brain is sluggish or underactive because it's been damaged or inflamed, this light can give it the fuel it needs to start firing properly again.
There's a story in the research about a woman with face blindness. The term was acquired prosopagnosia.
Yes. And I want you to just imagine this for a second. Imagine waking up one day and looking at your husband or your child. You can see their eyes, their nose, their mouth. But your brain cannot assemble those parts into a recognizable face.
It's terrifying. They're a stranger.
A complete stranger. This woman had this condition, likely from some kind of trauma or illness, so she went in for this laser treatment. She had one session. Just one. 5 minutes later, she walked out of the office, looked at a colleague she'd been working with that morning, someone who had been a visual stranger to her just hours before, and she recognized him.
Just like that. After 5 minutes, the wire reconnected.
The neurons got the power they needed to bridge the gap. The report says it represents the first cured case of acquired prosopagnosia in the medical literature.
That's incredible. There's another case too, right? A schizophrenic patient who is seeing distorted faces?
Yes, this is another example of a processing error. The patient was seeing faces, but they all looked like they were staring at him with disgust.
So he was constantly feeling judged and paranoid.
Constantly. The QEEG map showed a problem in the visual processing pathway of his brain. So they targeted that specific area with the laser. The processing error corrected, the faces looked normal again, the paranoia that was being driven by that visual glitch, it just went away.
It's amazing. But it also leads to a pretty big question. If our biology is this sensitive, if a simple vitamin deficiency or a hidden tooth infection can completely break our minds, then surely what we eat every single day matters way more than we think.
It matters immensely. But this is where we have to get really nuanced. Because as we tease in the intro, what fuels you might just fry me.
This is section 2, biological nuance, and we have to go back to the pickle juice.
Let's talk about Dr. Tina Moore. She's a doctor. She knows her stuff. She's working hard, feels a bit dehydrated. She reaches for pickle juice, electrolytes, sodium. It's the classic healthy hack for hydration, right?
I've done it a dozen times after a run.
Me too. But within 30 minutes of drinking it, she is in full-blown crisis mode. Her heart is racing. Her skin is flushing bright red. She feels a sense of impending doom. It looked and felt exactly like a cardiac event.
But it wasn't her heart.
No, it was a histamine response.
Wait, back up. Histamine? I thought histamine was for allergies, like pollen makes me sneeze, so I take an antihistamine.
That's one major role of histamine, yes, the allergic response. But histamine is also in food, and it acts as a neurotransmitter in your brain and a signaling molecule all over your body.
Okay.
Now, normally, your body has an enzyme in your gut, it's called DAO, that breaks down histamine from food before it causes any trouble. But some people, due to their genetics or gut damage, don't have enough of that DAO enzyme.
So they can't break it down properly. The histamine gets into their bloodstream.
It floods the system. And pickles are a fermented food. All fermented foods, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, yogurt, are loaded with histamine.
So Dr. Moore basically poured a bucket of histamine into a body that couldn't drain it.
Precisely. Her blood vessels dilated. That's the flushing. Her heart raced to compensate for the drop in blood pressure. Her brain's panic centers were activated. She was having a histamine intolerance reaction, not a heart attack.
And the same thing happened to Dr. Tyler Pansner with the chicken soup.
A very similar mechanism. He was recovering from bronchitis, so his body was already inflamed and stressed.
Yeah.
He ate this beautiful homemade chicken soup, which involves slow-cooking bone broth for hours.
Which is supposed to be so healing.
It's supposed to be. But the longer you cook bones and meat, the more histamine breaks down for the amino acids. So that healing broth was a histamine bomb. 10 minutes after eating it, blinding migraine.
This is huge.
Yeah.
Because how many people are out there trying to heal their gut with bone broth and sauerkraut and kombucha, and they actually feel worse? They get anxiety or rashes or headache.
Thousands. And they think, oh, it must be a die-off reaction, or I just need to push through it. No, you are poisoning yourself.
It's just not right for your biology.
Exactly. Dr. Pansner explains it like puppet strings. Your genetics are the strings. If you have the gene for slow histamine breakdown, high histamine foods are not your friend, especially when you are stressed.
Why does stress matter so much in that equation?
Because stress itself causes your cells, particularly mast cells, to release histamine. So imagine a bucket. Stress fills the bucket halfway. Then you drink the pickle juice that fills it the rest of the way and makes it overflow. And that overflow is the symptoms.
So the takeaway here really is one person's medicine is another person's poison. You have to know your own dashboard.
You absolutely have to. There's no one-size-fits-all healthy.
Now, speaking of things that can poison us without us even knowing, let's talk about mold. Dr. Jess Petros calls these stealth toxins.
This is a controversial topic for some in mainstream medicine, but for the people who are suffering from it, it is all too real. We're talking about people with these mystery symptoms.
Like what?
Chronic fatigue. It feels like a lead blanket. Brain fog so thick you can't remember your own phone number. Strange rashes, joint pain, and even really weird things like static shocks.
Static shocks.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one. But some patients report getting shocked by everything they touch. It's a sign of nervous system dysregulation. They go to their GP, they run the standard blood panels, and what do they find?
Everything looks normal.
It's all in your head. Or maybe you're just depressed.
That's what they always hear.
But Dr. Petros digs deeper. She looks for mold toxicity. And the really tricky part is finding the source. She mentions that people can do these ERMI tests, where you check the dust in your house for mold DNA. But sometimes even that misses the source.
She actually uses dogs, right?
Yes. Mold-sniffing dogs.
Like a drug-sniffing dog at the airport.
Exactly the same principle. These dogs are trained to detect the specific volatile organic compounds that toxic molds release. She referenced 4 specific cases where patients were sick. They knew it was mold, but they couldn't find it anywhere. The house looked pristine.
So they bring in the dogs.
They bring in the dogs. The dogs alert on a specific wall. The homeowners are skeptical. They open up the drywall, which looks perfectly clean and painted from the outside. And the back side of it, the part inside the wall, is black with stachybotrys.
That is the stuff of nightmares. I mean, hidden poison growing in your walls.
It is. But Dr. Petros has a really, really important warning for people who find out they have mold or Lyme disease or any of these chronic stealth pathogens.
Okay.
The instinct is to go to war. You want to detox. You want to take the strongest herbs, the strongest antifungals to kill the mold.
Get it out of me.
Right. But she says that is a classic rookie mistake. You have to focus on drainage before you focus on killing.
What does that actually mean, drainage?
Imagine your body is a house full of toxic garbage. You decide it's time to clean it up. You start sweeping, you're bagging trash, kicking up all this toxic dust.
Yeah.
But, and this is the key, all the doors and windows are locked shut.
So you're just moving the poison around. You're stirring it up.
And you're choking on it. You're making yourself sicker. In the body, the doors and windows are your drainage pathways. Primarily, that's your bowels and your sweat glands.
So, pooping and sweating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you aren't having regular bowel movements, and she means at least one good one a day, and you aren't sweating regularly through exercise or saunas, you cannot detox effectively.
Because if you kill the mold, it releases all these toxins.
Mycotoxins. And if those toxins can't leave your body via the toilet or through your sweat, they just get reabsorbed through your intestines, they recirculate, and you get a massive flare-up of symptoms.
So step 1, get the exits open, sweat and poop. Step 2, go after the bad guys.
Crude, but 100% accurate. Open the drainage pathways first.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the hardware. We've looked at the fuel and the toxins. Now let's shift gears. Suppose you aren't sick. Suppose you're doing okay. But you want to do better. You want an upgrade.
This is section 3. Physical upgrades. Moving from repair to optimization.
And we're starting with something that sounds almost too simple. It's called rucking, which is basically walking with a heavy backpack.
It sounds incredibly simple, but the science behind it, specifically regarding a concept called the gravitostat, is fascinating. This comes from the work of Michael Easter and Sean Stevenson.
The gravitostat, that sounds like a sci-fi gadget from a movie.
It does, but it's a proposed internal scale that our bodies have. The theory suggests that our bones, specifically cells inside the bone, called osteocytes, act as weight sensors. They can feel the load of gravity.
So my bones know how fat I am.
They know how heavy you are, total load. And they seem to communicate that information to the brain, which then regulates appetite and metabolic rate.
How do they know that?
There was a brilliant study with obese subjects. They put them all on a calorie-restricted diet to lose weight. But they split them into 2 groups. Group A wore a weighted vest.
Okay.
And here's the clever part. As they lost body fat, the researchers added weight to the vest to keep their total load exactly the same as when they started.
So they were tricking the bones.
They were tricking the gravitostat. And Group B just lost the weight naturally without the vest.
So what happened?
Now, normally, when you lose weight, your metabolism slows down. Your body thinks, oh, I'm lighter now. I don't need to burn as much gas to move around. It becomes more efficient.
Which is why weight loss always plateaus and people regain the weight.
Exactly. Group B's metabolism crashed. It dropped by about 250 calories a day. But Group A, the weighted vest group, saw almost no drop in their metabolic rate. It only went down by 16 calories a day.
Wow. That's a huge difference. So by tricking the body into thinking it was still heavy, they kept the engine revving high.
Yes. The osteocytes send a signal to the brain. We are still carrying a heavy load. We need muscle and energy to move this thing. Do not slow down the furnace. Burn the fat, but keep the muscle.
Did the results hold up long term?
2 years later, the vest group had only regained half the weight compared to the control group because they successfully defended their metabolic rate.
That is brilliant. It's such a simple, elegant hack. Just put on a backpack when you walk the dog.
They also mentioned compelling data from Alaskan hunters. These guys hike for 14 days with massive packs, hauling meat, gear, rifles. They lose a ton of weight on these trips, but when they measure body composition, it is almost exclusively body fat. They don't lose muscle.
Because the body knows it needs the muscle to do the work.
The body is smart. It knows, if I burn the muscle, I can't carry this elk out of the wilderness and I'll starve. So if you want to get lean, the signal is lift and carry heavy things.
It's evolutionary logic at its finest.
It really is.
Okay, next upgrade. This one is for the brain. Chewables.
This comes from Jim Laval and Ben Greenfield, and they tell this great story about the Corvette racing team.
Like the actual race car.
Yes, at the Le Mans 24-hour endurance race. These drivers are in a hot car under immense physical and mental pressure, focusing intensely for hours and hours. They were suffering from what they called hot brains.
Is that a real medical term or just what it sounds like?
It's basically neuroinflammation. When you focus that hard for that long, your brain generates a lot of heat and metabolic waste products. The drivers' reaction times were slowing down dangerously deep into the race. And in a car doing 200 miles per hour, a slow reaction is deadly.
So what did they do to fix it?
Jim Lavelle developed a protocol using a compound from ginseng called ginsenoside R3. But here's the key. He didn't give it to them as a pill to swallow. He gave it as a nasal spray, and later as a chewable troche called synapsin.
Why does the delivery method matter so much? Why not just swallow it?
Because of something called the first pass effect. Think of your liver as a very, very strict border guard. If you swallow a pill, it goes into your stomach, gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and that blood goes directly to the liver before it goes anywhere else.
And the liver filters it.
The liver confiscates it. It metabolizes and neutralizes about 80 to 90% of most compounds.
Right.
You're only getting a tiny fraction of what you paid for into your systemic circulation.
Right. But the tissue inside your mouth, under your tongue, in your cheeks, and in your nose, That is a porous border. It's filled with blood vessels that bypass the liver. The compound goes straight into the bloodstream and straight to the brain.
It's the express lane, no border guard.
Exactly. So the drivers use this. It lowered their brain temperature, reduced the inflammation, and helped them maintain their reaction time. It helped them win the race.
Lavelle and Greenfield suggest we can use this chewable strategy for other things too, right? Like boosting hormones?
Yes. They share a case study of a 36-year-old man with testosterone levels at 240 ngdl.
Which is shockingly low for his age. That's like 80-year-old man low. He should be at 600, 700 at least.
Ouch.
He started a protocol using a liposomal testosterone chewable. He would just hold it in his cheek until it dissolved. His levels jumped from 240 to 1100.
1100? That's like superhero levels.
It's high optimization. And that massive jump was largely due to the improved absorption. If he had swallowed that same dose as a pill, the liver would have destroyed most of it, and his levels might have barely budged.
So the lesson is, it's not just what you take, it's how you take it.
The delivery system is everything.
Okay, one last physical upgrade before we move to the mind. Hair loss. I know this is a huge source of stress for a lot of people, men and women.
Cynthia Thurlow brings some really specific and useful numbers here. And again, it's all about the difference between a normal lab range and an optimal range.
Right.
If you go to your doctor because your hair is thinning and you check your ferritin, which is your iron storage protein, the lab report will say normal is anything from, say, 20 to 40 ngml.
So if you're at 30, the doctor pats you on the back and says, you're fine, your iron is normal, go home.
Right. But Thurlow points out that for hair follicles to actually grow and stop shedding, you need your ferritin to be at 90 to 100.
Whoa. That is double or triple the top end of the normal range.
Exactly. You could be medically normal, but aesthetically bald. The standard for survival is not the standard for thriving.
And she talks about protein intake too, right?
Yes. She calls hair amino acid hungry. It's literally made of protein. If you are not eating enough, she recommends at least 100 grams a day for most women. Or if you are fasting too often, your body goes into conservation mode.
It panics.
It panics. It says, we don't have enough building blocks for the heart and the liver and the brain. We have to cut power to the non-essential factories.
And hair is not essential for survival.
Precisely. The body is ruthless with its resource allocation. If there is a perceived famine, even a self-imposed one, from too much fasting, the hair is always the first thing to go. So eat a steak, check your ferritin, and make sure it's optimal, not just normal.
Okay, we've tuned the engine, we've biohacked the absorption. Now let's look at the driver, the person in the seat. This is section 4, the software.
And we have to start with a concept that I think will be a huge relief to a lot of people. It's about stopping the endless chase for hype.
Dr. Gabrielle Leon talks about this. We live in this rise and grind culture. Everyone wants to be pumped up and motivated and on fire all the time.
It's a culture of dopamine chasing. But Dr. Lyon argues that high highs inevitably lead to low lows. It's emotional physics. What goes up must come down. Instead, she advocates for neutrality.
It's just another Tuesday.
That's the mantra. And she shares this incredible story about a man she calls Brian. He was a Navy SEAL, Tier 1 operator, the absolute elite of the elite. After 20 years of service, he gets into a motorcycle accident and loses his leg.
That is devastating. I mean, that's his career, his identity gone in a split second. He would expect profound depression, rage, grief.
You absolutely would. But when people would ask him how he was coping, how he was dealing with it, he would genuinely say, "Oh, you mean my leg? That was 6 months ago."
Wait, really? That sounds like he's in denial, like he hasn't processed it.
That's what I thought at first, too. But Dr. Lyon explains it wasn't denial. It was neutrality. He didn't attach a big, tragic story to the event. He didn't say, "My life is over. This is the worst thing that ever happened." He just looked at the fact. I have one leg now. Okay, what's next?
He stripped the emotion out of the data.
Exactly. And by doing that, he avoided the heavy emotional baggage that usually paralyzes people after a trauma. Dr. Lyon argues that if you can treat both your biggest triumphs and your biggest disasters as just another Tuesday, you become unbreakable. You stay steady on the path.
That is really powerful stuff. But let's be real, sometimes the brain does get hijacked. You get stuck in a negative thought loop, a worry loop. Did I forget to lock the door? Does my boss hate me?
We all get stuck in those. And for that, we have a specific protocol. It's called the worry list. This comes from the work of Claudia Hammond and Dr. Shadeh Zarai.
This sounds like something a school counselor would suggest. Just write down your feelings. It sounds a little simplistic.
I know, it sounds basic, but there is real clinical science here. A Dutch psychologist named Ad Kerkhoff found that the simple act of writing worries down, externalizes them, and reduces rumination.
But, and here's the crucial twist, you have to schedule worry time.
Scheduled worry time. Like you pencil in freak out about finances for 3 and 0 p.m.
Ideally, yes. You set aside 10 minutes, a strict time limit, and that is your designated time to worry.
But doesn't that just make you dread 3:00 p.m. all day?
No, it actually works via a mechanism called stimulus control. Throughout the day when a worry pops into your head, you don't fight it, you just write it down on your list and tell yourself, not now, I will deal with you at 3 and 0. It allows you to disengage and get back to your day.
And what happens when 3:00 p.m. rolls around and you actually look at the list?
The funny thing is, you realize half of it was complete nonsense. The emotional charge is faded. You look at it and go, that's not a big deal anymore. Or you see a clear action step you can take. It contains the worry instead of letting it bleed into your whole day. I can actually see that working. But what about when you have to perform? You're about to give a big speech or go on a first date. You're nervous. Everyone tells you, just calm down. Take a deep breath.
And that is just about the worst advice you can give someone.
It is. Why?
Think about the physiology. When you're anxious, your heart is racing, your cortisol is up, you have adrenaline pumping, you are in a high arousal, high energy state. Calmness is a low arousal, low energy state. Trying to slam the brakes from 100 miles per hour to 0 is almost impossible.
So what do you do instead of trying to calm down?
You pivot the energy, you reframe the arousal as excitement.
So you just tell yourself a different story.
Anxiety and excitement are almost identical physiologically. The racing heart, the sweaty palms. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about what those feelings mean.
I'm not nervous, I'm excited.
Exactly. There was a study by Allison Wood Brooks at Harvard. She had people sing Journey's Don't Stop Believin' karaoke in front of a critical audience. I mean, a nightmare scenario for most people.
That is terrifying.
The group that was told to try and calm down performed poorly and reported feeling very anxious. The group that was told to say, I am excited out loud, performed significantly better and actually enjoyed it more. They surfed the wave of adrenaline instead of trying to fight it.
I love that. Use the energy. Don't try to suppress it.
There's one more really important software update we need to cover, and that's trauma. This comes from Dr. Paul Conti.
Trauma is a heavy word. It gets thrown around a lot these days.
It is. And Dr. Conti has a really clear model for it. He explains that traumatic memories get stuck in the limbic system, the emotional, primitive, nonverbal part of the brain. It's like a ghost in the machine. It haunts you because it has no language. It's just pure, raw feeling.
So how do you exercise that ghost?
You have to give it words. You have to articulate the pain, whether that's journaling, talking to a therapist, or even just recording a voice memo for yourself. When you force yourself to put a narrative, to put words to the experience,
you're moving it.
You are physically moving that activity from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex, the logical, language-based part of the brain.
You're moving it from the part of the brain that screams to the part of the brain that thinks.
Exactly. And once it's in the logical brain, it loses its overwhelming power. It becomes a story that happened to you rather than a feeling that you are constantly drowning in. You can analyze it, you can learn from it, you can integrate it.
Okay. So we've fixed the hardware, we've upgraded the software, but we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a messy, noisy, cluttered world.
This is section 5. The environment. Because you can have the best mindset and the best biology in the world, but if your environment is toxic, you're constantly swimming upstream.
And we're starting with the minimalists, specifically Joshua Fields Millburn. Now, I've always been a bit skeptical of minimalism. It sometimes feels a bit like rich people pretending to be poor.
I get that perception. But Millburn's story is the classic American dream gone wrong. By the time he was 30, he had it all. The 6-figure salary, the big house in the suburbs, the luxury cars, the walk-in closet full of expensive clothes.
Was he happy?
He was miserable. He was addicted to shopping. He was deep in debt, stressed out of his mind. Then in the same month, his mother died and his marriage ended.
Wow, that's a breaking point.
It was a total system crash. And it forced him to look around and realize that his success was just clutter. The stuff wasn't making him happy. It was a burden he had to pay for, manage, clean, and organize. So he started purging.
He has a rule that I actually tried this week. It's called the spontaneous combustion rule.
It's a great thought experiment. I love this one.
You look at an object in your house and you ask yourself, if this thing just spontaneously burst into flames and disappeared right now, would I be devastated? Or would I secretly feel a little bit relieved?
And if the answer is relieved,
get rid of it. You are paying a stress tax just by keeping it in your house.
but hold on. What about sentimental stuff? If I burn my kid's first art project, I'm not relieved, I'm guilty, but I also don't want 500 macaroni paintings in my basement.
That's the hardest category. He suggests photographing it. Keep the memory, lose the physical bulk. But the real target for this rule is the just-in-case clutter. The clothes you haven't worn in 5 years, the kitchen gadgets you used once.
And he has another rule, the fool's price rule.
Sale price is fool's price.
Explain that.
Never buy something just because it's on sale. He says if you would have bought it at full price, fine. But if the sale is the only reason you're buzzing it, you're being played. If you just leave it at the store, you save 100%.
Sales trigger a scarcity panic in our brains. We think we're saving money, but we end up paying for it with our space and our peace of mind.
Okay, moving from physical clutter to chemical clutter. Alcohol.
Andy Ramage and Dr. Rangan Chatterjee call this the alcohol reset.
Now, Ramage wasn't an alcoholic in the clinical sense, right?
No, and that's why his story is so relatable for so many people. He's a middle-aged drinker, a couple beers after work, a bottle of wine on the weekend, totally normal by social standards. But he felt stuck. His career, his fitness, everything felt like it was in second gear. He called alcohol the kryptonite in his backpack, just weighing him down.
So he took a break?
He says you need 90 days. A lot of people do dry January 28 or 30 days, and that's good. But Ramage argues that the real superpower benefits, the deep sleep, the mental clarity, the weight loss, the massive drop in anxiety, they don't fully kick in and stabilize until you hit that 90-day mark.
But the biggest barrier for most people isn't the physical craving, it's the social pressure. People are terrified of being the boring one and tardy.
Ramage has a great simple rule for this, the 15-minute rule. He says the awkwardness of not drinking at a social event usually only lasts for the first 15 minutes.
Only 15 minutes.
That's it. You arrive, you feel a bit awkward, you grab a soda water with lime, maybe someone asks why you're not drinking, maybe they don't. But after 15 minutes, everyone else has their first drink, they settle into conversations, the vibe shifts, and nobody cares what is in your glass anymore.
You realize you don't actually need the alcohol to connect.
You just needed to get past the initial friction of feeling different.
That is actually really reassuring. Just survive the first 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Now, we are getting into the deep end for our final topic here. This is future forward stuff. Bioelectricity. This comes from Dr. Michael Levin. And I have to warn the listeners, this is where things get a little weird.
It is the absolute frontier for sure.
Dr. Levin has a theory that cancer isn't just a genetic mutation. He calls it dissociative identity disorder of the cells.
It's a fascinating and powerful metaphor. Think about your body. It's a massive cooperative. Billions and billions of cells all working together. A liver cell knows it's a liver cell because it's constantly getting electrical signals from its neighbors saying, hey, we're building a liver here. Stay in line. Don't grow too much.
There's a constant electrical conversation happening.
And in a tumor, that electrical communication breaks down. The cell stops hearing its neighbors. It gets amnesia, it forgets it's part of a body, and it reverts to its ancient, primitive, single-celled state. And what does a single cell want to do?
Grow and divide at all costs.
It goes rogue because it's lonely. It's disconnected from the collective.
So how do you fix it? The usual way is to nuke it with chemotherapy or radiation.
Which is destroying the hardware. Levin suggests we should be trying to fix the software. He's shown that if you can restore the correct electrical signals, if you can reestablish those communication channels, you can remind the cell, hey, you're part of a kidney. And the cell will actually stop growing and go back to work as a normal kidney cell.
Has he actually done this? Or is this just a theory?
He's done it in frog embryos. He's induced tumors that are genetically identical to human cancers and then normalized them, made them disappear just by manipulating the voltage gradients across the cells. No chemo, no radiation. It's early days for humans, obviously, but it suggests a future where we treat cancer not with poison, but with information, by reprogramming the cellular software.
That is mind-blowing. And speaking of information, let's wrap up with AI. Dr. Ranjan Nag.
This brings us completely full circle to the user manual we talked about at the beginning. Dr. Nag uses AI to integrate all the different data streams we've been talking about. Wearables, blood tests, genetic data.
He did a personal experiment, right? The ultimate N-of-1 trial.
Yes. He decided to go on a strict vegan, no-sugar diet for 3 weeks, and he picked the absolute hardest time of year to do it, from Thanksgiving through Christmas.
That's just masochistic.
Truly. But he tracked his blood metrics continuously using wearable sensors and an AI platform. And he saw his best health metrics ever. The AI was able to show him, definitively, with his own data, that for his specific biology, sugar was poison.
It wasn't a guess. It wasn't a generic recommendation from a diet book.
No. It connected the dots in a way that a doctor who sees you for 10 minutes once a year could never possibly do. It helped him read his own unique user manual.
So we've covered a massive amount of ground today. I mean, we've gone from large red blood cells causing panic attacks to mold-sniffing dogs, weighted vests for metabolism, chewable brain boosters, and 90-day alcohol resets.
It is a lot to take in. It's a whole new framework.
If we have to boil all of this down, if we have to synthesize it into one single takeaway, what would it be?
I think the word is awareness.
Awareness.
Yes. Whether it's awareness of the hidden mold behind your drywall or awareness of how that pickle juice is interacting with your specific genetics.
Or awareness of the worry loops that are spinning in your head, or the awareness of the physical clutter that's choking your living room.
You cannot fix what you cannot see.
That's it.
We spend so much time trying to force solutions, taking more pills, forcing positive thinking, without ever taking the time to do the diagnostic work and truly understand the root of the problem.
And I want to circle back to Dr. Gabrielle Leon's concept of neutrality for a final thought.
Just another Tuesday.
In a world that is completely addicted to the highs, the likes on social media, the sales, the sugar rush, and is absolutely terrified of the lows, maybe the most radical health move you can make is to just opt out of the roller coaster.
To find that stability in the middle. To treat both your triumphs and your disasters as data points to learn from, not as definitions of your self-worth. That, to me, is true mental vitality.
So here is our challenge to you, the listener. We just threw a dozen different strategies at you today. Please do not try to do them all at once. That's just more stress.
Pick one nugget, just one thing that resonated. Maybe it's buying a cheap weighted vest for your morning dog walk. Maybe it's trying the worry list tomorrow at 3 p.m. Or maybe it's just looking at that healthy kombucha you drink every day and asking, is this actually making me feel good?
Test it for a week. Be your own scientist, because as we've learned today, the only true expert on your body is you.
Well said.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.